in our nation's history. It has accompanied our soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen around the world as they have fought for our freedom. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and in honor of the men and women who have fought for our freedom, I would like to share 4 important flags from our nation's history. In the early days of our country, men in each town of the colonies were formed into volunteer military units known as militias. These men were the town farmers, shopkeepers, and business owners who would take time to learn military tactics. If there was an emergency, they would be called out to defend their town. Because they were supposed to be ready to help at a moment's notice, the members of the militia were also known as Minutemen. On April 19, 1775, the British Army marched to the towns of Lexington and Concord to take away the militia's weapons and supplies. When the British arrived, the Minutemen were ready for them. The first shots at America's Revolutionary War were fired at Lexington and at Concord. This flag was carried by the Minutemen from the town of Bedford at the Battle of Concord. My 6th great-grandfather, Moses Curtis, was a Minuteman who fought at the Battle of Concord. This flag reminds me of my great-grandfather and the other brave Minutemen who fought for our nation's freedom. Most people are not aware that not all of the battles of the Revolutionary War took place in America. Captain John Paul Jones was a commander in the Continental Navy who boldly attacked towns in England and often fought with his ships within sight of England's shores. During the Battle of Flamborough Head, Captain Jones fought against a much larger British ship close to England. During this battle, Captain Jones commanded that his ship sail close enough to the British ship that he could tie the 2 ships together while they fought. As the fight raged on, the British captain called on the Americans to surrender. Instead of surrendering, Captain Jones called up to the British captain, "I have not yet begun to fight." The battle kept going, and the Americans captured the British ship. This flag is the flag that Captain Jones flew on his ship. It has an interesting design, unlike any American flag you have probably ever seen. But this flag was the first American flag to be recognized by a foreign government. Holland recognized this flag when Captain Jones sailed the captured British ship into a Dutch port. This flag reminds me of the brave soldiers and Marines who fought our nation's battles on the sea. In 1812, the British and the Americans were once again at war with each other. This war, known as the War of 1812, is often considered America's second war for independence. In September of 1814, the British attacked Washington, D.C. and burned the Capitol and the White House. Things looked pretty bad for the Americans as the British marched their soldiers and sailed their fleet towards the town of Baltimore, Maryland. Before the British attacked, a young lawyer by the name of Francis Scott Key sailed out into the harbor to meet the British commanders and negotiate for the release of one of their prisoners. Although the British agreed to release the prisoner, they would not allow Mr. Key or the prisoner to return to shore. They had to wait while the British attacked the fort that guarded Baltimore. As the attack began, Mr. Key noticed a large American flag flying over the fort. As the night grew dark, he could tell that the flag was still there as bombs exploded and rockets flew near the fort and the flag. But when the bombing stopped, Mr. Key couldn't tell if the flag was still there. He anxiously waited for the morning light to see if the Americans had won the battle. As the sun came up on the morning of September 14th, 1814, Mr. Key looked across the harbor to find that the flag he loved, the Star-Spangled Banner, was still waving over the fort. He was so inspired by the sight of his country's flag that he wrote a poem about his feelings on the back of an envelope he had in his pocket. This poem became known as the Star-Spangled Banner and is now our national anthem. This flag represents the flag that flew over Fort McHenry during the Battle of Baltimore. It has 15 stars and 15 stripes and is the only U.S. flag to have more than 13 stripes. This flag reminds me of our national anthem and what it means to me. In In the 1860s, our nation was torn apart by the Civil War. It was the most destructive war ever fought in America and cost over 600,000 American lives. It was a terrible tragedy for our country as brother fought against brother to determine if our nation would remain one or undivided. William Driver was a ship captain who sailed around the world in his ship, the Charleston. His wife made him a flag to fly on his ship. When he retired, he moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where he became well known for flying his flag at his home on special occasions. When the Civil War began, Tennessee joined the Confederacy and fought against the Union. On numerous occasions, Confederate soldiers searched Captain Driver's home to find his flag and destroy it, but they never found it. Eventually, the Union Army defeated the Confederate Army in Tennessee and re-entered Nashville to claim it for the United States once again. Captain Driver cut open an old quilt where he had sewn his special flag to hide it from the Confederates and marched with the Union soldiers to the state capitol. There, his flag was raised over the Capitol and was saluted and cheered by the Union. As his flag flew from the Capitol, Captain Driver said, "Now I can go to my fathers in peace, knowing that Old Glory and Tennessee have been saved from the Union." The Union soldiers who raised the Captain Driver's flag told his story in the beautiful name that he gave to his flag. The name Old Glory has become a popular nickname for the flag of the United States of America. This flag is the same design as the original Old Glory. I hope that when you look at the flag that flies from our school, you will remember some of these stories and appreciate the sacrifices that others have made so that we can live in a free country today. Happy Veterans Day.